Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast, hosted by the Fantasyholics Podcast Network. Brant, coming at you live again on YouTube. I don't know about you. I'm as giddy with anticipation as I can get. I know we've both been doing some drafts here and there, but we are just, 10 short days, something like that, away from some Chiefs versus Lions real football. I read a stat we'll have NFL football for the next 167 days on that Thursday. So definitely some exciting times ahead, Brant.
Yep, starting this Thursday, you start to get college football, so you get that little appetizer in, if you would put it, and then it just starting this Thursday, like I said, you get your appetizer. Then it's just football galore coming up. Just an exciting time. It's like Christmas for fat people.
It's better than Christmas for yeah, it's better than Christmas for fat people, not better than Thanksgiving for fat people.
Absolutely not.
Thanksgiving, we get food and football. So
absolutely.
But anyway, Brant, speaking of holidays, we do have another holiday coming up next week in Labor Day. Brant, you and I have both agreed we're going to take the week off. Go ahead and get our minds right for the NFL season. Spend some time with the family on Labor Day, and we're not going to have an episode next week.
Yeah, we're gonna spend a little time with the family before we kick them to the curb for football season. But we'll be back at you guys, getting prepped and ready for the week. And don't forget our starts and sits live every Sunday on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook on the Fantasyholics page. So don't forget to join us in every Sunday morning on that.
Brant, I don't know about you, but I feel like I speak for every husband, fiance, and boyfriend across the great nation. And typically, all of us cringe at the thought of sleeping on the couch, but we are all about to be in heaven doing that on Sundays, eating bellies full of food, watching the countdown show in the morning, our favorite countdown show, whether that's ESPN, NBC, Fox, or with the Fatboyz and the Fantasyholics team, and then just grubbing out on the couch and dozing off when your wife and kids touch the channel or touch the remote, shooting up out of your sleep, saying, "What are you doing? I'm watching that." Right?
I'm watching that.
just a great time for husbands, dads, fiancés across the world, and some women too. I don't mean to exclude them, Brant, but we are here. All the hard work, all the grinding, it has paid off. It's time.
It's time. It is time. So let's get our bibs on and
let's eat. So, Brant, I think it's only fitting that with it being around, a week and a half somewhere in that general vicinity of kickoff of the NFL season, it's only right that we come at you hard this week with some deep dive players that probably aren't on your radar at this point. You've either had your draft already, or if you're in those last couple of minute leagues, I know I got one that drafts next weekend still. But if you're in these last minute leagues or you've already drafted, these guys are probably guys that are going undrafted in your leagues. Brant, you and I have definitely talked about it on this show numerous times in the past. You and I both like having some dart throws later in the draft of guys that, yeah, maybe there's not a lot of surface value, but if you really wash and spit and shine and wash and scrub really, really hard, maybe you get some value out of those guys. And today's episode is dedicated to those guys. These are going to be guys that are rostered in under 50% of dynasty leagues on Sleeper and are going after like round 17, 18 in startup drafts that are, if you've got a short roster, they're not being drafted.
Yeah, these are guys that really, if you decide you want to jump on your defense and kicker maybe a round earlier, these are guys that you could steal in the last round of your draft and are going to have potentially some value. And for those redraft leagues, these are some guys that we're going to be talking about that people are going to be racing to the wire probably for at least one or two of these guys after week one. They'll be racing to the wire to pick these guys up. So get ahead of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying all these guys necessarily need to be rostered, Brent, but I do think the hit rate on some of these guys is going to exist, obviously. And you know, several of these guys I find myself owning. Maybe I'm clinging to hope a little harder than I should be here, but again, these are guys that are going deeper in drafts. Maybe when instead of taking that second defense, like a lot of other people are doing, or getting that bye week kicker. Maybe you come down here and grab one of these guys who maybe towards the second half of the season when injuries start taking place, these guys will provide dividends, and you'll still have your waiver claim when everybody else would have been using it on these said players, Brant.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know I went out and I actually acquired one of these guys in our dynasty league this past week. Actually, I'm gonna kick it off right there with that guy right there. That's Marvin Mims of the Denver Broncos. He's going to be seeing plenty of playing time to start the year with Jerry Jeudy already banged up, dealing with a hamstring injury. We've seen that time and time again that could linger throughout the year. He's starting in all three wide receiver sets. He's the number 3 already on there. He actually outproduced Quentin Johnston in college. He actually was better and had better numbers than Quentin Johnston in college. He ran a 4.3840, so he's very explosive. He can stretch the field. He's got great hands. And this is an offense that I've talked about multiple times that I expect there to be an uptick in the passing game. I expect this offense to start clicking. And we already know that this offense is going to have to throw the ball in order to stick with teams like the Chargers and the Chiefs. So Marvin Mims is a guy that I really could see moving up. I mean, they obviously felt very comfortable with him, with them letting Tim Patrick go. So I know there was an injury designation on Tim Patrick as well, I believe. But this guy's already moving up the depth charts. And like I said, he's going to be sitting in the number 2 role for probably the first 2 to 3 weeks. And I really do believe that this is a guy that's going to be flying off of waivers after week 1.
Yeah, Brant, and I think again too, to give you a little pat on the back. Potentially, you've been very high on the Russell Wilson bounce back all season. So if Russell Wilson does bounce back, that's going to be big for guys like Mims who, maybe wouldn't have had a chance had you not have seen a Jerry Jeudy injury, and that's happened. So now it's time. Mims is going to get his shot a lot earlier than he probably would have. But we'll see. And you're right. Tim Patrick was out for the season, ACL injury. Otherwise, he probably would have gotten some run. Denver was very high on him, but things are working out well for Mims. And as long as that Russell Wilson bounce back happens, Brant, I think a lot of people are going to be really happy with Mims, especially with the price he's going for. So I again, you did a little bait and switch with the Buccaneers fan in our league, and you were able to get Mims for Trey Palmer. So. Hey, it happens, and you traded a guy who's probably 4th or 5th on the depth chart for a guy who is now number 2 to start the season. So we'll see if that pays dividends for you, Brand, or not.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to start with my favorite player on this list, and the reason this player is my favorite is it opportunity creates chances, which create PPR numbers or fantasy numbers in general. Deion Jackson of the Indianapolis Colts, Brant. Here we are as of Monday, August 28th at 8:06 p.m. Central Time. Jonathan Taylor is still a Colt. Have heard nothing about whether he intends to play for him. There's nothing going on. Somebody is going to be the ball carrier for the Indianapolis Colts, Brant. Whether Jonathan Taylor ends up getting dealt, which a lot of the leading experts are saying it's more likely Jonathan Taylor is gone than he is back. So even if they get a decent running back or they go pivot and sign one, it's going to take somebody a couple weeks to learn the offense. So guys like Zach Moss, Deion Jackson, and Evan Hall, I think.
Evan Hall, yeah.
Will all be given opportunities to show what they've got the first couple of weeks. But again, last year, Deion Jackson got plenty of run. There was 3 games, Brant, where he had over 50% of the snap last year. In those games, if I could speak, he He had an RB25 finish, an RB1 on the week finish, RB36. And then week 18, he had 41% of the snaps and he finished as RB8. So this is a guy who can hang some numbers when he gets in there and gets the opportunity. And again, a lot of people probably don't have Deion Jackson on their boards. He's going undrafted. If Jonathan Taylor misses even just a few weeks, this is a guy that's going to get points. And if you happen to have him and the Jonathan Taylor owner does not, sorry, sometimes that's how trade advantages happen for one team over the other. Deion Jackson is a guy that I'm rushing out to acquire wherever I can get him, just to ensure that I have a chance at that backfield if Jonathan Taylor does leave or he takes a couple weeks to get healthy.
Yeah, and everyone's rushing out to either Evan Hall or Zach Moss. And well, we've seen what Zach Moss can do as a starter, and it wasn't all that great when he was up there in Buffalo. But we've seen what Jackson can do, and Indianapolis trusts him with the ball. They showed that when Taylor missed time. So this is an absolute guy that's going to be easily to acquire at the bottom of your drafts or off waiver wires. And I 100% agree on this. I'm not going to be the one that's drafted Zach Moss like a lot of people are saying to do. I'm going to be the one drafting Deion Jackson, and I think you'll be sitting there reaping the rewards if you're that guy.
Absolutely, Brent.
So I'm going to skip my next one just because it's based on injury a little bit there. But I'm going to go to my favorite one, and that's actually Jake Ferguson, tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. This guy's going outside of the top 24 tight ends in almost all drafts. He's going after the 200th player off the board in most drafts. He's the number one tight end. He played 100% of the snaps during the preseason with the first team. Dak Prescott loves his tight end. He had Dalton Schultz finishing top 10 2 straight years there. Dalton Schultz was also the most targeted player on the Dallas Cowboys last year in the red zone. So now Jake Ferguson stepping into this tight end role. We know there's plenty of mouths to feed. Well, what stops Jake Ferguson from being one of his favorite targets down there in the red zone to move the ball most comfortable? He's probably going to be the most open guy on that field because most of the time it's going to be a linebacker trying to cover him. And he's a big-bodied guy. And this is a guy that you can really steal really late in the draft as your second tight end and just see what happens. And I mean, it's his second year. Like I said, the last 2 years they supported a top 10 wideout with plenty of mouths to feed out there. I know that they may not have been the greatest, as great as they are this year, but it's a tight end in Dallas and a pass happy offense. And obviously that's the way they want to go with pass happy or a little more pass friendly because they let Zeke walk. Zeke's a pounder. Well, they got Pollard, who's more explosive out of the backfield. So obviously they want to air that ball out even more than they already have. So I absolutely love Jake Ferguson going this late in drafts.
Yeah, and not to mention, Brant, Dallas is about to just bust it wide open with their passing game. They're about to turn Trey Lance loose. Dak Prescott to the bench. You heard it here first, right? That's they went out and got him. He's a starter, right?
Yeah, go from third string to third string.
Here's the deal. Dak is bouncing back this year, Brant. I've had him as my bounce back quarterback all year. I'm expecting massive things for Dak. And listen, I'm not necessarily as high on Jake Ferguson as a person as you are, but that tight end position is going to get work in Dallas because CeeDee Lamb's not always going to be open. Tony Pollard's not always going to be open. Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks aren't always going to be open. And not to mention with those 4 names I just said in the red zone, that may very well leave Jake Ferguson open. So until Jake Ferguson becomes somebody, he may be the guy in the red zone. So yeah, I'm all over this. Again, it's one of those situations where I think this offense takes off so much that I'm looking to grab pieces wherever I can, Brant. So
absolutely.
Speaking of offenses that are taking off, I'm not so sure you'd think about this team with that one, but they do live in the same state as the Dallas Cowboys, and they say everything's bigger in Texas. I have Jonathan Mechie, Brant. Here's the deal. Obviously, we don't know a whole lot about how Mechie's going to look in the NFL. We still don't know what C.J. Stroud is. C.J. Stroud in the preseason was just a total crapshoot. It was bad. It was a stinker. It was awful. But he threw that touchdown in week 3 of the preseason. He looked a little bit more calm, had a little bit more pocket presence. Maybe this kid's all right. Here's the problem, Brant. I know he threw his 1 touchdown of the preseason to Nico Collins. I myself am a big Nico Collins fan as well. I know a lot of people have been saying, hey, that Nico Collins breakout's coming. Jonathan Mechie, was rehabbing an injury to, I believe, his right leg coming out of college, then gets diagnosed with leukemia, rehabs from his leg, and beats leukemia and is back here ready to go, going to be on the field week one. This is a guy that in 2021 at Bama had 96 receptions, 1,142 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns, and his career average for yards per catch, Brent, was 13.4. So those are numbers that CJ Stroud should be hyper attracted to. This is Jonathan Mechie's not a guy that's going to burn you with his speed, but his route tree is so crisp, Brant, and this is a guy that's very elusive without a ton of high end speed. I don't think you're going to see him with a lot of 75-yard touchdowns or anything like that. But this could be a very Thielen-esque wide receiver. And again, somebody has to be the wide receiver one in that offense. And if you look historically in the NFL, a wide receiver one in a bad offense is still valuable unless it was like the 2017 Baltimore Ravens that didn't have a touchdown catch all season to a wide receiver. Jonathan Mechie has a chance. So does Robert Woods, and so does Nico Collins. Again, last round, this is a guy coming out of Bama. We know what Bama wide receivers typically do in the NFL. Nick Saban's done nothing but sing praises for this kid. I'm willing to roll the dice on him, Brant.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen Nico try to get it going for the last 2 years. He's going into his third year. So, I mean, yeah, the breakout might be here for Nico, but it's a dart throw on any of those three. And Mechie's the one that stood out more in college than the rest of them. So Mechie would be the guy that I'd be throwing the dart on as well.
Absolutely.
So my next one's a running back here. And it's Ty Chandler out of the Minnesota Vikings. I was all over Madison when Cook was, talking about leaving and everything else. And I did some deeper research on Madison, and I'm fading Madison actually quite a bit. And Ty Chandler, he's the clear backup to Madison. We've seen the Minnesota Vikings use a 2 running back set. I know they had Cook, who was the main horse. I know Madison's had very productive games when he played, but Ty Chandler, he's the clear backup. He saw 85% of the starter snaps during the preseason. If Madison goes down, I think that Ty Chandler could be in line for the full workhorse load there in Minnesota. And he's shown in college that he could hold up to it. He had over 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns in his final year in college at North Carolina. He's explosive. He's more explosive than Alexander Madison is. And I honestly, watching some of the preseason, I know it's preseason, he looked like he may be a better runner between the tackles than Madison was. And when we talk about the explosion, Madison ran a 4.6 40 and Ty Chandler ran a 4.3 40. I know that doesn't sound like a huge difference, but when you're going for the whole, that is a pretty big difference. And I just think Ty Chandler actually has some standalone value late in drafts. And like I said, this is a guy that I could easily see taking over the workhorse load if Madison does go down.
This is one, Brant, you're going to have to be on this boat by yourself. I expect big things out of Alexander Madison this year. The Vikings did go ahead and say bye-bye to Dalvin and made sure to re-sign Madison. So I'm going to give Madison a lot of credit. I know you didn't. You did pump the brakes a little bit and say this is, huge. If he gets injured, it could be huge for Ty Chandler. I just think Alexander Madison finishes as an RB1 this year. Top 12 some places is where I expect him to be. And I'd be really shocked. It'd take an injury, in my opinion, for that not to happen.
Okay.
I'm going to go with somebody in his division, though, Brant. And this is a first-year starting quarterback in Jordan Love with the Green Bay Packers. Listen, there's not a whole lot to say about Jordan Love, Brant, except for the fact that Christian Watson, Jordan Reed, Luke Musgrave, Aaron Jones, and Romeo Doubs is a much better supporting cast than I think most of us would have expected it to be going into this season. When you don't want to spend a first round draft pick on talent, with the exception of Jordan Love, it's hard to expect a lot. But Jordan Love offers something, Brant, which I watched the final preseason game there with the Packers versus your Seahawks when Jordan Love was in. He looks super, super poised in the pocket. He's not like a deer in headlights prancing back there looking to just use his legs. But when he needs to, he used them, and he used them well. I think he had a couple 10-yard rushes, a couple 10-yard scampers against your defense. I don't know if that was you guys' first or second string defense, but he definitely looked good. There was some dropped passes by both Jordan Reed and Christian Watson down the stretch. And then ultimately the connecting with the Christian Watson for a touchdown on the final play of their on those guys' day. Here's the deal, Brant. He has a great head coach who's going to set him up. LaFleur is going to have Jordan Love out there looking for success. They're not mailing it in. They're not trying to get a high draft pick for a quarterback next year. This team is competing to win. They're going to try to go out and win the division this year. I think Jordan Love is a lot better than people give him credit. And I think his rushing upside, his mobility is going to put him over the top in a fantasy world, Brant. Again, when you have guys like Christian Watson, Jordan Love, Luke Musgrave, Aaron Jones mainly, Watson and Jones. You put the ball in those guys' hands, it could be behind the line of scrimmage. These guys are going to go get you some yak yards, and they're going to help you as a quarterback for a fantasy standpoint. I like Jordan Love this year. This is a guy that I'm willing to, throw a dart on. Let me get my Joe Burrows or my Justin Herberts early in the draft, guys that are really, really sexy plays that don't run, and then let me come back with a Jordan Love. To handcuff it maybe and see what I have with Jordan Love. But this is a guy, Brant, that I think, again, the upside's there. We'll see if he's able to get it out and what that looks like for fantasy football under that microscope, I guess, if you will.
So this is one that I wanted to argue with on, and then you brought his name up while we were talking about this, and I had just actually sat down and watched some film breakdown that they showed on NFL Network about the first year starters, and watching his film breakdown of how well he's reading the defenses and looking the safeties off, looking the corners off, and you talk about the explosive players and Watson and Jones and I mean even Dillon back there. And then he had that great connection with Romeo Doubs down the sideline. By the way, that's another guy you can get really late in your draft is Romeo Doubs. And now I absolutely am pretty excited to watch Jordan Love this year. And I don't know if I've ever said that about a Green Bay quarterback, because normally they're just one of those guys that sit in the pocket and they do fling the ball. But I'm excited to see what he can do with that offense. Yeah, I think Jordan Love will be very fantasy relevant this year. I could see him creeping into the top 12 quarterbacks. He'll be great for your second quarterback in Superflex if you wait for a little bit longer, because not a whole lot of people are going to be looking for him. But Jordan Love is a guy that I'm all in on watching him play and seeing what he does do.
Would you say that you love you some Jordan?
I do love me some Jordan.
Okay, just checking. Just a little temperature check there.
Yeah. But they did show a film breakdown of CJ Stroud, and I was not impressed. So this guy right here, the next one I got to talk about, this is injury has to happen for him to be full-blown relevant. He made himself the clear back. Oh, it's Tajee Spears of the Tennessee Titans. This one here, I think, is going to be more of a few-year rental. I know they've already had talks of knee problems with him and possible arthritis in his knees. So I don't know how long he will be completely relevant. But I think over the next 2-3 years for dynasty leagues, this guy could be really relevant. He played 80% of the starter snaps and saw, I think it was 95% of the starter touches, running back touches in that offense. It's a run-first offense. We already know that there in Tennessee. Derrick Henry's not getting any younger. He's seen over 300 touches in, I guess, 4 of the last 5 years is what I just saw. Tajee Spears was super explosive in college. He had over 1,800 yards from scrimmage last year in college. He's a guy that has great hands. He's shown the ability to catch the football. He's shown the ability to run between the tackles. This was a guy that I actually was hoping Seattle was going to draft later, but then we decided we wanted Zach Charbonnet. But that's a different story for a different time. But yeah, no, I think that Tajee Spears will have some type of relevancy. I don't think he'll be a plug and play guy right away, but I think that they're going to see what they have in him with the fact that Derrick Henry is 29 years old. He's seen so many touches in his career. I could see them trying to pull him off the field a little bit more early in the season to let him stay fresh for that chance of them competing for a division title. Because really that division, besides the Jaguars, is really wide open. And if the Jaguars don't perform like they did last year, that division is wide open for anyone.
Here's my question with you, Brant, on the Tennessee Titans, world when it comes to how long do you think is Tannehill's leash this year? If this team gets 3-4 games back of the division, do they kind of shut Tannehill down and let both Malik Willis, who looked fantastic in the preseason, which I didn't know if I'd ever say those words uttered out of my mouth. And then Will Levis. Do you think they give these guys a chance at some point to come in and see what they have if they start sliding? And if so, what does that mean for Derrick Henry to you?
I think if they're shutting down Tannehill and they're shutting down their veterans because they are falling that far behind, I do think they will give the younger guys a chance to see. So I think Tajee Spears could be a guy that could see the field a lot. I think obviously Treylon Burks will see the field a lot anyways. But I think that you could see what this team looks like with a younger version on the field. So if they do start sliding that far out of the division, I definitely could see the rookies and the younger guys taking over.
Okay. All right, Brant, my last one for you here is a guy that this is another one I just can't seem to get my flag unplanted out of this guy's hill. This is a guy that, again, it's almost all situational based with him. Hunter Renfrow, Brant, is a guy that I just can't get enough of this year. And I just think that the reason being is because, one, people hyper fixate on Davante Adams, as they should, right? He's been that guy. He's earned it. There's no question about it. The other part of this, though, is Jimmy Garoppolo is now in town. It's not a gunslinger like it was with Carr last year and years prior. We're talking about Jimmy G, who I don't know, Brant, do you consider Jimmy G to be a big-armed thrower? I kind of look at Jimmy G as a guy who's, hey, 10 yards in a cloud of dust, 10 yards, let my wide receiver go do this, 10 yards, let my tight end do that. And he was, he was fortunate in San Francisco. He had weapons like Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, who could go get yards after the catch for him. And this is in no way, shape, or form me taking a shot at Davante Adams. I still think Davante Adams finishes somewhere in the top 20 this year. Obviously, maybe that decline happens just because of the quarterback play. I don't know. We'll see. But Hunter Renfrow is a guy that, with Darren Waller out of town, Brant, a rookie tight end, and Michael Mayer, who I think could potentially take a little while to shape up. Hunter Renfrow is a guy that I think should be a huge target factor for Jimmy Garoppolo. This is a guy with a relatively low ADOT his entire career. He does a lot of his work near the line of scrimmage, little slant, 5-yard slants, little 5-yard ends. But in 2021, Brant, this guy was the wide receiver 11 in PPR formats. That's his only season fully healthy in the National Football League. So, granted, I don't think any other season he would have been anywhere near a wide receiver one, but he's capable, right? And that was with Darren Waller and Darren Waller's peak time too. Like, if you go back and look at 21, Darren Waller had a good season in 21. So yeah, I'm definitely thinking I know you love Jacoby Myers, and that's fine. I've never been on the Jacoby Myers train. I don't care for Jacoby Myers. It took the dude 582 games in the National Football League to catch his first touchdown. He's a bum. I could catch one in shorter time. No joke. Just kidding, Jacoby Myers. If you're listening, we love you. But no, I do think Hunter Renfrow is the type of guy that could come in, Brant, this year. He's going off like the 67th wide receiver off the board. Like, that's chump change. So yeah, this is a guy that, if he happens to put up numbers like he did in 21, steal the draft or steal the waiver wire. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm not on board with Renfrow. I think it's Jacoby's. Jacoby will be the short route guy there, but like you said, I've been in love with him. I know he knows the offense with McDaniel there, and I think I got the right coach there. I'm confused right now, but he does know the offense that he had there in New England. Then he also had, the time in New England. Jacoby knows it. I've got my flag planted on Jacoby being the number 2 guy there. But it could be, like you said, Renfrow's done it. But we'll just have to wait and see with this season there. I can't get on board on the Renfrow train.
Okay. Most people aren't, Brent. That's why he's going in the late 60s for being drafted. But I think that pretty well covers up a lot of our deep dives here, Brant. I think we've got them in the bag. Again, next week we won't be back. We're going to take Labor Day weekend off with our family, hang out, get our minds right. Like, it's the last week, Brant, to really pour some love and some affection into the family, and then smack them on the back of the head, get them away from me. I'm watching football. So here we go. Now I just need to get a permission slip signed from work that says I can sit on the couch for the next 25 weeks and not move. We'll see how they feel about that at work.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming quick too. Like I said, you get your appetizer this week, and don't forget, you guys, we'll be doing our picks of the day there at Underdog. So we'll be putting those out every week on our start sit, and we'll also be putting them out on our Monday episodes to get you ready for the week. We'll both come up with some early ones, and then we'll have some for our start sit show as well.
10 a.m. Eastern time for that live start sit every Sunday. That'll be, again, if you want to be a part of that, you're going to have to subscribe and like our YouTube channel, subscribe and like our Facebook, and then our TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram if you want to be notified when the two Fat Boys go live so we can help you out with some start sits. Or if you guys just want to come jump on with us and talk about what you're going to grub out on Sunday. We always get down on having those conversations as well. Brant and I always try to make some time on those Sunday morning chats to discuss what we're going to eat. Because, nobody wants to be sitting there staring at us and wondering why there's drool running down our mouth. We'll explain it to you. There's no secrets here.
Absolutely. And now I'm off Saturdays too. So there might be a chance that I might be eating during our start sit just to pregame a little bit. But as always, guys, stay hungry
and stay fat, my friends.